It was November of 2018. I had become a huge fan of indie horror games, and I was curious to see if there were any indie sports games out there. So I started scrolling sports games in the Xbox Marketplace on my Xbox One console. I eventually came across Access Football 2018. After reading the description and looking at the screenshots, I bought and downloaded the game. I liked what I saw, and I've been part of the Access Football community ever since. If you are coming from Access Football 26 or the upcoming Access Football 27, and you're looking at the footage of Access Football 2018 in this video, you are probably thinking that Access Football 2018 is a bad game because it is worse than Access Football 26 in every way. To be fair, in retrospect, Access Football 2018 is a bad game and is inferior to Access Football 26 in every way. But if you look at Access Football 2018 from the lens of its initial release in 2018, it was the best Access Football game ever made at the time and laid the foundation for all Access Football games that came after. Let's dive in. Access Football 2018 did a lot of things for the first time in the franchise's history. It was the first game in the franchise to have console ports, Xbox One and PS4, which is how I even discovered the game and franchise in the first place. It was also the first game in the series to have penalties in the game. The previous entries did not have penalties. It was the first game to have injuries occur. It was the first game in the series to have defensive hot routes. Over 50 new formations and 100 plays were added to the game. 6 new stadiums were added to the game. 4 new default teams were added to the game, and new uniforms were added for each team. New player movement controls were added to the game. New player animations were added to the physics system that the game was using at the time. New AI logic was added to the game, making the CPU-controlled teams more challenging than previous versions of the game. The player models were decent looking at the time, especially if you played the PC version of the game at 4K resolution, and the stadium models were better looking than previous versions of the game. Stat overlays detailing player stats and drive stats occasionally popped up like today's Access Football games. The UI of the game's menus looked great, like most Access Football games' menus look, and the instrumental soundtracks that played in the menus were epic. If you scrolled your mouse up to the top of the screen on the PC version, a media player would pop down and you could control which of the game's 3 soundtracks were playing. Franchise mode, however, is where significant improvement was made in Access Football 2018. This is the game that first rolled out the 36-team tier system in franchise mode. Just like the franchise mode in all the subsequent Access Football games, you had 3 tiers of 12 teams in each. You started out in Tier 3, and your goal over multiple seasons was to make it to Tier 1 and win the championship. If you win the Tier 3 championship against the worst team in Tier 2, you would move up to Tier 2, and that team would take your place in Tier 3. Same process to move up from Tier 2 to Tier 1. This soccer-style promotion relegation system incentivized users to play through at least 3 full seasons in franchise mode, but like all Access Football games, you can play infinite seasons in franchise mode. This is the game that added free agency, trades, practice squad, player contracts, weekly awards, and yearly awards to franchise mode. Just like in previous and subsequent Access Football games, if you didn't want to play the games yourself, you could coach the games, just like an NFL head coach, which is where you call play and you watch your team try to execute your play calls while being controlled by the CPU. You could also spectate the games and watch the CPU control both teams. You could also simulate the games and treat the franchise mode like a football manager game. Create a team, create a playbook, and create a play were not present in Access Football 2018 like they are now in Access Football 26. Instead, you could change the team details, and player attributes for each one of the default teams. You could also mod teams into the game, which the game settings allowed you to do. This would allow you to mod the NFL teams into the game. You could mod your favorite college teams into the game. You could mod any team you could think of into the game as long as you were able to actually do the modding. The level of team customization present in Access Football 2018 would be considered shallow compared to Access Football 26, But back then, Access Football's team customization was greatly appreciated by the football gaming community because Madden 19 did not have any team customization options at all. In case you're tempted to think that I'm making Access Football 2018 out to be this amazing game, I am not. I knew from the beginning that the physics and animations present in the game were incredibly wonky and didn't respect the laws of physics much, and were visually ugly. I know that even with all the AI logic that was added, the game was too easy and dominating the CPU was completely normal. I knew that the game's visuals and in-game audio were way behind industry standards. I knew that there were a lot of things missing from the game that rendered it a shallow, unpolished game if I were judging it in a vacuum. However, as I played Access Football 2018 back in 2018 and 2019, I could see the potential that Access Football had, and I had faith that the developers could reach that potential one day. So, I started collecting all the Access Football games moving forward. Looking at Access Football 26 and the upcoming Access Football 27, I can safely say that my faith in Access games has been rewarded thus far, and I believe will continue to be rewarded. In conclusion, the legacy of Access Football 2018 is multifaceted. On the one hand, it is a shallow, unpolished game lacking many of the features that we currently enjoy in games like Access Football 26. On the other hand, it was the best Access Football game ever made at the time of release, and it ultimately laid the foundation for all the Access Football games that came after. In fact, if you were someone who had played Access Football 2015 and you played Access Football 2018 for the first time, you would have been blown away. The jump from Access Football 2015 to Access Football 2018 was virtually as big as the jump from Access Football 2018 to Access Football 26 was. Access Football 2015 was so much worse that it made Access Football 2018 look like NFL 2K5 by comparison, if you can imagine that. The game was originally $20 when it came out, but if you go to Steam and look for the game, it only costs $5 now. If you'd like to have a piece of Access Football history and see just how far the franchise has come in the past 8 years, then go ahead and try out Access Football 2018 today. Thank you for watching. See you in the next Retrospective.